Dear students, today I'll be teaching you disk scheduling. In previous video, we learned about the different types of disk and structure of the disk. Today we'll learn about disk scheduling. We know that the operating system is responsible for using hardware efficiently. In case of disk drive, the efficiency means having a fast access time and disk bandwidth. What is access time? It is basically time required to access data from the disk is called as access time. The access time must be very fast and the disk bandwidth must be high. What is disk bandwidth? It is basically the amount of data transferred per unit time, that is called as disk bandwidth. The disk bandwidth must be more and we should have the faster access time. So we can define some parameters here like seek time. Seek time is the time required for the disk arm to move the heads to the cylinder containing the desired sector. The rotation latency is the additional time for the disk to rotate the desired sector to the disk head. So here we should minimize the seek time, and seek time is approximately equal to seek distance. The disk bandwidth can be defined as it is the total number of bytes transferred divided by the total time between the first request for service and completion of the last transfer. So that is how we can define the disk bandwidth. So there are many sources which are requesting for the disk here. So that is called as disk IO request done by many resources or many sources in the system. It includes operating system, system processes and user processes. IO request basically includes input or output mode, disk address, memory address and number of sectors to transfer. So OS is maintaining a queue of requests that is called as a device queue for a disk here. So whatever the IO requests are made by the different processes in the system, including operating system, system processes, user processes, will be put into this particular request queue by the operating system. If the disk is idle, then it is immediately made available to the process. It means IO request will be immediately served if the disk is idle. If the disk is busy, then the request will be put onto the queue. Here we need to note that drive controllers have small buffers and can manage a queue of IO requests. So there are many disk scheduling algorithms exist, so which can be used to serve disk IO request. So here we can illustrate the algorithm, scheduling algorithm with a request queue of 0 to 199. So here queue is storing the IO request. The first IO request is 98 for the disk. Next one is 183, 37 and so on like this. So whatever the IO request we have, so that is put into a request queue whose length is 199 and the header position is 53. Currently the head is at sector 53. Now let us see the different scheduling algorithms. The first one is FCFS. FCFS stands for first come first served algorithm. So in this algorithm, the IO request which is made first will be served first. So that is what FCFS. Here this illustration shows the total head movement of 640 cylinders. So this is the request queue where we will find the different IO requests stored, and the starting position for the head is at 53. So presently the head is at 53. Now let us see how the IO requests are served. In what order the IO request will be served, let us understand. So in this particular technique, we have to serve the IO request on first come first served basis. The first request, so that is there in the queue is 98 from 53. So we'll have to serve the 98. So the head will move from 53 to 98. The next request in the queue is 183. So the head is moving from 98 to 183. Then to the next request 37. The next request in the queue is 122. The head is moving from 37 to 122. Then from 122 to 14. 14 to 124. 124 to 65, 65 to 67. So that is how IO request will be served in case of FCFS scheduling algorithm. But there is a problem with this particular algorithm. So we can see there is a very big swing that is called as wild swing from 122 to 14. So the head was at 122 and it was moving up to 14. So this is called as wide swing and there will be more delay in this particular case. And after serving 14 it is returning back to 124. So this itself illustrates the problem with this particular scheduling algorithm. So it is better to serve 124 124 from 122. So it is better to serve 124 from 122. But instead what is happening here is from 122 we are moving to 40 then to 124. So there is a lot of head movement is going on, so which is not efficient approach. The next scheduling algorithm is SSTF. SSTF stands for shortest seek time first. So in this algorithm, we select the request with minimum seek time from the current head position. From the current head position, we consider the next request that is having the minimum seek time. So this SSTF scheduling is basically similar to shortest job for scheduling, but it may cause starvation in case of some of the requests. Now let us take an example for the head movement of 236 cylinders. So it's a queue containing different IO requests and the starting position for the head is the 53. Now let us see how the requests are served in case of SSTF with the starting head position as 53. So from current head position, we'll have to consider the request with minimum seek time. So from 53, so the next uh, value is 65. The next smallest seek time is 65. So from 53, the head will move to 65. The next request with the smallest seek time is 67. From 65, we serve 67. Then the next smallest is 37. 37 will be served. Then 14. From 14 to the next is 98. From 98, we serve 122. From 120 to 124. Then finally 183. The next algorithm is scan. So in case of scan algorithm, the disk arm starts at one end of the disk. Say for example, you take the left hand side end. Assume that the disk arm will starting at left hand side of the disk and it moves towards the other end, that is the right hand side, and the serving the request until it goes to the other end of the disk where the head movement is reversed and serving continues. In this particular technique, the head arm starts at one end and it moves towards other end, and meanwhile it will serve the requests that are coming on the way, and whenever the head reaches the other end, the direction is reversed and serving the request will continue. The scan algorithm is called as elevator algorithm because it works exactly like a elevator. So let us take an example to illustrate scan algorithm. So this is the queue of IO request and head starts at position 53. So actually the head will move to the left hand side, so that is to sector 0. So the current position for the head is 53 and it is moving towards 0. So during this way or path, the request served are 37 and 40, and from 0 the head starts moving towards the other end of the disk, that is towards the right hand side, and meanwhile it will serve the requests that are coming on the way. So the requests served here are 65, then 67, after that 98, 122, 124, finally 183 will be served. In this particular algorithm, if a request arrives in the queue just in front of the head, it will be served almost immediately. But problem is, whenever a request arrives just behind the head, then we'll have to wait until the arm moves to the other end of the disk and reverse the direction and it comes back. Until that, we'll have to wait. So that is the a problem we'll be facing in case of scan. The next algorithm is C-scan. So this is almost same as scan. So there is some modification you can observe in case of C-scan as compared to scan algorithm. It provides more informed wait time as compared to scan. So in case of C-scan, head moves from one end of the disk to other end, serving request as it goes. When it reaches to other end, it immediately returns to the beginning of the disk without serving any request on the return trip. So that is the difference we can observe between scan and C-scan. So let us take the example to discuss about C-scan algorithm. So this is a queue and head starts at 53, and from 53 head is moving towards right hand side end. So during this path it is going to serve a request like 65, 67, then 98, 122, 124, 183, and after that it reaches to other end 199, and it will reverse the direction. So head will be reset to beginning, that is left hand side end, that is at 0. But during this return trip, it is not serving any of the request. And once it reaches 0, again it starts moving towards the other end of the disk, that is right hand side. Meanwhile, it will serve a request 14 and 37. So one thing we have to observe here, during the return trip, no request have been served. The next algorithm is C-loop. So this is basically improved version of C-scan. So in this particular algorithm, arm goes as far as the last request in each direction and reverses the direction immediately without first going all the way to end of the disk. So in this particular algorithm, the disk is not going to dead end of the disk here. I mean, head is not moving to dead end of the disk. It goes up to the last request in both the directions. Let us take the example to discuss C-loop here. So head starts at 53 and head is moving towards the direction of right hand side. Instead of moving head up to the dead end, that is up to 199, it will move up to the last request in that direction. The last request here is 183. So the head starts at 53, it will move up to the last request towards the direction of right hand side instead of reaching up to the dead end 199. So meanwhile, the requests are served like 65, 67, 98, 122, 124. The last request served here is 183. The head movement will stop at last request in the direction, and the direction will be reversed from 183, and it will start moving towards left hand side, and it will be stopped at the last request in this direction. So that is 14. It will reverse the direction and the head starts moving right hand side, and it will stop at the last request in this particular direction, that is 37. So that is how C-loop algorithm works. Now, which algorithm is better? SSTF is the most common and widely used disk scheduling algorithm. Scan and C-scan perform better for the system that place a heavy load on the disk. So there are many IO requests exist in the system, then it is better to go for scan or C-scan. Basically, the performance of the algorithm depends on the number and types of the request. So the number of requests are less, definitely the algorithm performs better. If there are too many requests, definitely it will suffer. So in that case, it is better to go for either scan or C-scan because they perform better if there are too many requests made. Next topic is the disk management. So in disk management, what we do is we perform low-level formatting or physical formatting. So low-level formatting is basically dividing a disk into sectors that the disk controller can read and write. So each sector can hold header information plus the data plus error correction code. Error correction code, that is called as ECC in short. It is used during error. The size of sector is usually 512 bytes. To use a disk to hold files, the operating system needs to record its own data structure onto the disk. It means partition the disk into one or more groups of cylinders, each treated as a logical disk. For example, if you take the Windows operating system, the disk will be divided into the number of partitions. The partition is basically grouping of the cylinder is called as partition. Then we have to perform the logical formatting. Partition either it can be raw or it can be formatted with the file system. If at all you want to store files onto the disk, we need to perform the logical formatting. The logical formatting must be done with some file system. In case of Windows, it will be NTFS file system. A partition will be formatted using NTFS file system. Hence, it is called as making a file system. To increase efficiency, most file systems are grouped into blocks of clusters. In case of disk input-output operation, it will be done in terms of blocks. In case of file I/O operations, it will be done in clusters. A boot block initializes system. We know that there is a program called Bootstrap program which is stored in ROM. The job of Bootstrap program is to load and execute operating system program, and the Bootstrap loader program will be stored in the boot blocks of the boot partition. Let us understand what is boot partition. Boot partition actually is a partition where the operating system program is stored or residing. In case of Windows operating system, the entire disk will be divided into the number of partitions, and one of the partition is considered as the primary partition where actually we install the operating system program where the Bootstrap program is residing. Now let us take an example, that is booting from a disk in case of Windows operating system. As already mentioned, in case of Windows operating system, the disk is divided into the number of partitions. So the partitions are named like partition 0, partition 1, 2, 3 and so on. In partition 0, there is something called MBR will be stored. MBR stands for master boot record. So this master boot record is maintaining boot code and the boot partition. So there is some partition which is called as boot partition. In case of Windows, it is called as primary partition where actually the operating system program is stored or residing. So MBR is basically maintaining a partition table. It is containing the location information of the boot partition. So when you start the system, the boot code which is stored in the ROM will be executed, and the boot code will refer the partition table to get the boot partition. Then we move to the boot partition and we load the operating system from boot partition to the main memory, and the operating system program starts executing. Now let us look at swap space management. So we already studied about virtual memory. If there is no space left in the main memory, then processes are kept in the virtual memory. Virtual memory is basically a partition from the disk which is acting as an extension to the main memory. We know that size of main memory is limited. Only limited number of processes we can keep in the main memory. And once the main memory becomes full, the remaining processes will be kept in the virtual memory. It is basically a partition of the disk is taken as a virtual memory. A swap space can be having a normal file system, or it can be a separate partition which is doesn't contain any file system, that is called as raw partition. The BSD Unix allocates a swap space when a process starts executing, and it holds a text segment, that is program code, followed by the data segment. So there are some questions arising here. What if the system runs out of the swap space? If there is no space in the main memory, we go to the swap space where actually the processes are kept. If the swap space memory is full, what? So there are the two options we are having in case of swap space is full. The first option is we cannot start the new process because there is no space left in the main memory and also the swap memory. Another way is we can maintain multiple swap spaces. If one swap space is full, we can go to the next swap space where we can store the processes. So this is the structure of the swapping area in case of Linux system, where we find the swap slots, and there is a mapping of the swap slots to the files will be done here. Thank you.